My name is Aisha Ibrahim, and this is Election Brief. Within the next 30 minutes, we have the latest update from the political scene. We are live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, all social media handles at Joy News on TV around the world on NigeriaOnline.com. Election Headquarters is brought to you by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants and German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental Wellness and Beauty. Election Headquarters for an informed electorate. Please do stay for details. NDC flag bearer John Mahama has promised to develop the industries in all 16 regions of the country if he is voted into power to boost his 24-hour economy policy. The former president says this will leverage he will leverage each region's unique strengths and partner with the private sector to establish industrial processing zones. These zones, he says, will focus on enhancing value addition for a range of crops, including palm, cashew, cotton, groundnuts, cocoa, soya, cassava, shea nuts, and more. John Mahama made this comment during an interaction with the Association of Ghana Industries.
Under the next NDC government's industrial policy, we shall support all 16 regions to grow industries based on their comparative advantages and partner the private sector to establish industrial processing zones in the various regions for especially crops such as oil palm, cashew, cotton, groundnuts, cocoa, soya, cassava, shea nuts, among others. These, for want of a better word, will be staple crop processing zones. And let me explain a bit about that. It means that we're not going to do your typical 1D, 1F. We're going to take every region and see what its comparative advantage in terms of agriculture and agro-processing is. And then we will partner with the private sector to create industrial zones within the region to be able to absorb the agricultural products and add value to it and process them either for domestic consumption or for export. I don't believe that location of industries is conterminous with political districts. It is conterminous with the production of raw materials, availability of raw materials, closeness to a port, availability of power and water. Those are the things you take into consideration, not that because of political convenience, you want to put a factory in every district, even if the factory is not going to be viable. And so ours is going to be different. There are going to be 16 regions. We will establish agro-processing industrial zones. We'll look at the comparative advantage. For instance, if you take Bono and Bono East, they are the largest producers of cashew. So if we're going to locate cashew processing plants, it will be in Bono and Bono East so that we can get access to the raw material, create a guaranteed price for the farmers so that they can boost production.
Well, I've been joined by Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. She's a special aide to the NDC flag bearer John Mahama. Later in this conversation, I would also be joined by Richard Ahiagba, who is Communications Director of the NPP. I'll start with you, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. Great to have you. Developing the industries in all 16 regions certainly sounds good, but how does your flag bearer intend to achieve this?
Well, Aisha, I'm sure that we all listened to flag bearer John Mahama when he engaged the Association of Ghana Industries yesterday. What we also know is that there's a challenge regarding jobs. There's very high importation of all sorts of items that we can't actually produce here in Ghana. There's also a need for Ghana to move beyond just Greater Accra and Ashanti region and reach out to all the other 16 regions. Indeed, Mr. Mahama has clearly stated that each region has a particular crop, one way or the other, that will probably develop better there than it will in other places. We also do know that some regions in particular are actually the food baskets of this country. So if we're able to create first the industrial enclave, secondly, you'll be able to improve productivity and production. Thirdly, there's also a focus, largely maybe, for example, in Greater Accra or in the Volta region, for example, where you can focus clearly on just maybe cassava and cassava production, for example. You develop an industrial area there that actually provides all the incentives that people need. I am also recalling that Mr. Mahama actually had a similar idea with the free zones enclave policy. I'm sure you recall that the free zones were actually reactivated under Mr. Mahama and the Mills administration. These factories were actually across the country. In all, we counted about 140 of them, where people were focusing on different aspects of the economy and, of course, also to encourage growth. Look, Aisha, if we are able to work on improving productivity, take, for example, a crop such as rice, which we know can grow largely in most parts of our country. If we can leverage on rice production, we can first and foremost reduce importation of rice, for example. It would also reduce the pressure on foreign exchange, for example. It would also reduce the challenge where people go out there to borrow huge sums of money so they can import these sorts of items. Look at the level of interest rates here in Ghana. How do you compete, for example, with a rice farmer in India or in the United States of America or in Thailand and what have you? Mr. Mahama has done this before. Ghanaians are all waiting for an opportunity to create better jobs for everybody. Unemployment is at a huge rate now and almost a security threat. We need to leverage on all the cash crops that we have in and around this country. So, for example, if we focus in the Upper East region on beans and on groundnuts, for example, think about it. The industrial enclave will ensure that people have what? Access to farms. It will ensure that there's water readily available all year round, because we do know that thanks to climate change, for example, we no longer have easy rainfalls across the year. So we would need industrial enclaves that also include irrigation for people who want to farm. Aisha, we were promised one district, one dam. It has failed to deliver. What we also know is that when Mr. Mahama was in office, for example, he started the Kwalugu Dam. It was actually supposed to produce water all year round so people can continue to farm. For as long as we have water readily available in good supply, most of our regions, especially the very dry Sahelian regions, can farm all year round. So each region definitely has a certain crop that can do better than in another region. It is important also that we focus on what each region can develop. Once we are able to improve on production, I'm sure this will also move into growth. Note, for example, that when you look at our high importation bill, all we need is a counterbalance to this high importation bill, which is that we need to manufacture more. We need to put on more value. If you have an industrial enclave, it will encourage people about adding value. Remember that in terms of rice, for example, when people farm rice, what do? They take it to the rice mill. When you finish, you now have to brand it. You have to package it. You have to create a market for it. We have a port that actually only receives cargo and it rarely takes anything back. A lot of the reasons why we have these huge shipping costs is because when the ships call at our ports in particular, they return almost empty. Imagine that we can have ships calling in our ports of Tema and Takoradi and that we have commensurate cargo to go back to the markets where these ships are coming from. Half of our problems in terms of forex will be resolved. I'm sure Mr. Mahama has done this before and he will do it again. Let's remember also that when you look at the 24-hour economy, it would actually also be driven largely by exports, by lower interest rates, by high productivity and production, so that it means then that once there is demand, there is also supply. I think that this is the economic curve that all of us want to see. If we can actually achieve this, two things will happen. We'll create jobs for people. We'll open up each and every region of Ghana to a certain market. We will also reduce on our high importation bill. And this will also reduce the pressure that currently is challenging all of us. Look, today, for example, the dollar is almost selling at 14 cedis to a dollar, at 13.8. That is huge. The only way we can work to reduce this high cedi to dollar exchange is that we can improve on our production, improve on productivity, export more, and the way to go is to leverage on that free zones policy to be sure that we can produce. Look, Mr. Mahama himself is a large-scale farmer. So he knows what it means when you farm more cashews, for example. You know, sometimes, even when there's a market, the challenge has been that we have not been able to produce to meet the demand of that market. I remember when, for example, we started with cassava. Think about it. A time came when people could not even find cassava to feed the factory that was built at the time. But these are all things that can actually be done if the right logistics are put in place. And I am sure that this is what Mr. Mahama has largely been speaking to. Something must change.
Of course, enhancing value addition.
Exactly.
Enhancing value addition for these products. For instance, if you want to talk about cotton, cashew, and the issue about export, that sounds quite interesting. But do we have what it takes? I mean, our cocoa sector gives us a precedent. I'll come back to you, Joyce Bar-Mokhtari, but I'm going to bring in Richard Ahiagba because establishing industries in 16 regions means that the only match for this is the MPP's 1D, 1F. I'm told it's rather Dennis Miracle Abuaji who is on. Dennis is the communications director for Dr. Baomia's campaign team. Dennis, if you listen to Joyce Bawa, she also spoke about the one district, one dam, and she's asking where are they? So I would like to start on that note. Where are the dams, Dennis?
Hi, Aisha. Regards to Madam Mokhtari, I think that the communities that received some of these dams are making use of them. Of course, you'd recall that the dams were for specific enclaves within the country. And it was nowhere mentioned that it was a one district, one dam across Ghana. We have specific communities that
one
require
village, one dam.
support.
Yes, one village, one dam.
For the northern part of Ghana, and some dams have been dug for these communities, which they make use of. And I'm sure when you have your correspondents in the north, you can follow up and go and check some of these communities. We've constantly put out the list of these projects that were executed under the Special Developments Ministry. And so it's something that
do
you
you
can
have
always follow
some
up.
of them to share with us right now as we speak?
Not right now. If you had mentioned to me, I would have. I mean, even to know the northern country, the communities in the north. I mean, I'm not from the north. But these are things that are available that you can always verify. It's quite unfair for me to join an interview at this time and then you simply ask me to mention these villages to you.
Fair enough.
This is not the first time this.
Fair enough, Miracles Abuaji. The factories.
The dams have been sunk for communities who require irrigation support. And it's serving the purpose for them. And it's out there. You can always, verify them. I can also share the list with you maybe after this interview.
And the factories, the one district, one factories. Where are the factories? I know
over 160 factories are operational. At least for that one, I have about 2 in my area. Since I was born, I've never had any such thing in my area. Shoe fabric is a shoe manufacturing company in Ekuapem North. We have one of the biggest fully automated poultry farms also in my area. That's something we've never seen before. Again, the list of one district, one factory, the total number that have been completed, the list, the specific location, what they are into, and what they do has been put out. Those that are ongoing and at the various stages have also been put out, and even including those that are in the pipeline. I'm sure you know of the confit juice factory and what have you. So, I mean, 160, if you have time, we can take our time. I'll pull it and I'll mention all to you if you have the time to listen to the 160. But these factories are out there. Some of them, the products are not only in Ghana. Today, if you go to Walmart in the US, you'll find a confit juice in a freezer somewhere to take. This is progress. This is something if we had started in 1992, we probably would have had 300 or 400 of it. At least now we have 160, with others also ongoing. We build on from there, and that's how you build a nation. If you can point to 160 deliberate factories engineered under a program between government and private sector, that is progress. That is progress. That's a deliberate way to build the industrial nerve of every country. And I'm glad that the NDC finally are coming to terms with that, and they are promising that when they have the chance to ever come back to power, they are going to provide factories in regions. I mean, I haven't really heard clearly what they say they will do. But at least we have 160 factories that are operational across the country. And as we speak, there are Ghanaian young people and old people working to support these factories.
Our recent documentary, Miracles, on the 1D1F showed that aside from Ekumfi, which is producing Eku juice, there are no others that are into production. Can you help me, if there are any? You mentioned 160. Can you help me with those that are in production?
If you have time, I'll pull it and I'll mention all the 160 to you and tell you what they do. I just told you that in my area, we have factories, we have shoe fabric that produces shoes. Maybe tomorrow morning I can take you there. It's in a couple, and then you can go and look at. And again, after your documentary, if you require this data and you want to know, you can always request for it. So maybe next time when Kojo Brace is calling me, it tells me that Aisha will be asking you for the list of the projects and what they do, and then I'll provide it for you, and they give me the time. And I give you the 160 list. But at least I know in my area, I have a shoe fabric company that is producing shoes. Fundamentally, the point is that we understand that industrialization is critical. We have a government that has taken deliberate steps to work with private sector to start something. I hear the NDC promising what they could do. You ask yourself that when they had a chance, what did they do? You recall that in this country, in 1994, thereabouts, this same NDC that are promising factories, they passed the law in the Parliament of Ghana called the Divestiture Implementation Act. That law sets up a committee to sell off all state-owned factories that this country owned. You can imagine if these factories were re-engineered and gone into some public-private partnership to help them to survive, where we'll be today. So we need to continuously work together to be able to get private sector stimulated so they can contribute to what it is that we are trying to build. And if you have a government that has deliberately set such a policy and that policy is running 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, that is where you start from. It is better than zero. And we always say 1% is always better than 0%. And that is what it is that we in the MPP believe in. And we are glad that they are seeing some wisdom in that. And today they are promising one region, one factory. The decision now for the Ghanaian voter is to look at the two leaders, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and John Mahama, which of them they can trust and believe that they will deliver on that promise. John Mahama, His Excellency, opportunity to be president. And when he had that chance, the question is, how much of that did he do? How much of these regions did he provide a factory for? Or did he just realize that it's important? And if he just realized, how much assurance is he giving the Ghanaian people that he is actually going to walk through what it is that he's promising? We can count over 480 promises that he made in the past that he never fulfilled. So how does he give us comfort that the promises that he made before he became president in 2012, which he did, and he never implemented those promises? How sure are we that these promises that he is making, this time around, if he has an opportunity, he would fulfill them? So these are serious issues, serious matters that we are not going to trivialize at all. And we are going to put each of the two leaders to the litmus test.
Let me give you the opportunity, Jesba Mokhtari, to respond to some of the issues that Dennis has raised, and also to tell me how your flag bearer intends to enhance the value of these products that you've mentioned and how it's going to help with the 24-hour economy that you've always preached.
Well, Aisha, I'm very, very happy that you realize that Dennis was unable to provide even one example, except to talk about his own backyard. Mr. Mahama has done this before, and I have no doubt in my mind, do it again. Indeed, if you look at the list that I have, we had the Ayensu starch factory that was working. We had the Adan tomato factory. We had the Bupe shea butter factory. And indeed, even years under strongman Jerry John Rawlings, if you remember, we had Pineapple Fresh, which was always on the international markets and in many other shops. The Ghana shea butter, for example, is a world-renowned product that has been there for the last how many years? Indeed, if the markets were not available, we will not be talking about demand. You know, let me put this very, very succinctly, that the good people of Ghana have listened to Mr. Mahama. They know that this is a man who built Avnash Rice Factory, whose father in the past had a similar rice processing factory. It is no doubt that that factory was working very, very well, and that the really challenges that they had was challenges to do with raising funding and financing. Indeed, we have many of these factories dotted in the length and breadth of the country. What Mr. Mahama is speaking to is that he's going to be building upon most of these factories that are already existing. Indeed, this is not the first time we've had a shoe factory in Ghana. Have you forgotten about the Giok shoe factory? It's still working, still producing shoes for the Ghana military, the police, and many other things. There can be no doubt that Mr. Mahama has clearly outlined what he thinks Ghana needs for the next few years. Considering the rate of unemployment, considering the rate of inflation, considering the rate and the challenges we have to do with businesses in particular, look at the level of our borrowing today, 610 billion and counting. That is no mean issue. That is not a matter that can be swept under the carpet. Indeed, if the matter is to do with the one district, one dam, or is it one village, one dam, whatever the nomenclature is, if that process or policy were successful, we probably won't be engaging in this debate. I know that many factories were built and working under Mr. Mahama. The Bipe shea butter factory is one of them. But I will not say that before the Bipe shea nut factory was put up, that nobody was selling shea butter, for example, on an international market. My own mother, years before I even finished secondary school, had always dealt with and sold shea butter. So this is a matter that is not about which markets are available. The markets are available. What we have a challenge with is that our productivity and production are not as high. With levels to do with climate change, for example, we are suffering challenges with production, especially in our farming areas. So beyond where I come from, beyond where you come from, what we are looking at is a perspective that will develop and put Ghana at the levels where we want Ghana to be. I think that is what Mr. Mahama has been saying. Indeed, he has a flag bearer who promised 170 things to do with an economy, challenged the late vice president at the time to give him solutions. Today, he is flag bearer. He has not been able to deliver on any response to any of those questions that he put up. Indeed, even in terms of digitalization, look at the level of corruption that we've seen since that whole process started. Ghana did not start its automation today. It didn't start it yesterday. It wouldn't end it today. What we are looking for is an individual who is willing to build on what we have, an individual who is willing to develop all the factories that are now moribund and left to rot, an individual who is pledging to work with stakeholders in Ghana, which is why he met the Association of Ghana Industries, to be sure that whatever policies we are introducing are research-based, that they are going to collectively support the good people of Ghana, not just a few who are sitting currently in Jubilee House, that the benefits will be wide and enormous for each and every citizen. I myself come from a region that is very rich with shea butter, rich in cotton, rich in many other indigenous products that we want to create markets for. The challenge has always been access to land, for example, access to cheaper funds, which is what the biggest problem is. And the African Development Bank has spoken largely to the fact that farmers need access to lower interest rated funds, for example. They also need to ensure that we add value. What is the reason why a lot of the products we export, for example, are sometimes rejected by some of these international markets?
And then BC flag bearer will be helping people to have access to lands and farms, as you put it?
The industrial
is it part of the plan?
What the free zones did, and I'm sure you remember. That is exactly part of the plan. It is why we now need an industrial enclave, for example. So if you have an industrial enclave in each of these regions, what it means is that if large farmer interests even appear and want large groups of farms to farm with, what it means is that we form cooperatives. So there are more farmlands available. There are better farm inputs and implements. Look, Mr. Mahama introduced the cocoa roads in cocoa farming areas. I'm sure you remember. The Eastern Corridor Road, for example, was one of such projects. When they arrived, what did? They canceled that project. They spent huge sums of money to go and conduct an audit, the report of which none of us have seen since. You know, I don't want us to nitpick. What we want is to do things that benefit the generality of the Ghanaian.
And definitely, I'm sure there will be a time where we will interrogate this further as time goes on. Thank you so much, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. She's an aide to John Mahama, who is an NDC flag bearer for the 2024 elections. And thank you so much, Dennis Miracle Abuaje, who is Communications Director of the Dr. Baumia campaign team. Now, 2 more persons have picked forms to contest in the Ejiso primary of the NPP, soaring the number of aspirants to 9. The by-election has become necessary following the demise of MP for the area, Dr. John Kuma. Former Assembly member for Aaron Prince Drea and Mameya Abuajewa are the latest to join the race. Aaron Prince Drea, who described himself as a grassroots person, believes that quality will win him the elections. Nanaya Ojima is there for us. He joins us live on the phone. Nanaya, are there more people expected to pick forms for the primary?
I'm listening to the people on the ground. It looks like there is one more person that is being expected by the party members to also come into the office of the NPP in the Ejiso constituency and pick a nomination form. But so far, 9 people have picked their forms. Today, 2 people came in, and for about 2 hours since Mameya Abuajewa left, we are yet to find another walk into the premises of the NPP in the Ejiso constituency to also pick a form. But the information that I have been getting on the ground is that there are higher chances of one more person picking a form here in the Ejiso constituency. So if that should go through, it means that 10 people will pick nomination forms for the upcoming primary in the Ejiso constituency. Interestingly, this time we have 4 women among the 9 people who have so far picked nomination forms.
All right, let me bring in NPP Director of Election and Research, Evans and Nemakon. Grateful for your time, sir. First, how did you, in fact, the number is from 12 to 10. We are expecting one more to make it 10. And so I don't know if you really talked to people to rescind their decision. But let's talk about the party's preparation towards the Ejiso primary.
Well, Aisha, thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. But before I get to the issue of Ejiso, I think you were not fair to the Director of Communication for the campaign. You gave him little time to respond to all that Madam Joyce mentioned.
Is that so? I don't think so. I don't think so because I don't think so. Maybe you joined later when he had spoken for a while. Right, go ahead.
I mean, he promised that blocks were never built. You've known Mr. Mahama, and we are going to beat him once again in the December 7 election.
All right, so we're running out of time, so let's make it brief for me, please.
The arrangement that has been put in place by the party leadership is to open nominations and allow the good people of the constituency to participate in this exercise. The party is not imposing candidates. It is expected that by tomorrow, nomination will close, vetting will be done on Saturday. And so we'll get to know those who will really be in the contest at the close of appreciate the concern from the friends in the media monitoring the whole exercise and letting the world know that the New Patriotic Party is very open and has allowed people who are interested to be in the contest.
Right, I'm afraid that's all time will allow us. I'm grateful. Evans and Macron will be monitoring the Ejisu election. There's more we'll be bringing you from that constituency because of the interest there. This is your election headquarters. It's brought to you by Petrosol. Election headquarters is for an informed electorate.